Joining me today is an incredible actress. Her credits include productions like Frasier, The X-Files, Law and Order, SVU, Nash Bridges, The Sopranos, Taken, CSI, Judging Amy, Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, and The Mentalist. Listeners of this podcast will know her as Danny Sofer on The Shield. Catherine Dent is here on The Shattered Shield today. Thanks so much for joining me, Catherine.
You got it, Andrew. Hey, everybody.
So today what I want to do is get into basically Danny's season 1 and season 2, because that's where we are in the podcast narrative. But anytime I have a guest on the show, I always like to ask them, what is their Shield origin story? So I'd like to know from you, how did you get the role of Danny Sofer?
I got it the old-fashioned way. I auditioned for it. Yeah.
What does that mean now? I can't just hear that and then go along with it. I don't understand. What do you mean by old-fashioned way? Do they not audition anymore?
Well, I mean, there's still certainly audition. People have to audition, especially when you're a younger actor. But a lot of times they just, flat out offers. Yeah, but no, I was actually, I was shooting at the time the Jim Carrey, Frank Darabont movie, The Majestic, and the casting agent Deborah Quilla also cast that movie. And she has always been a big supporter of me, and she was casting The Shield, and she brought me in to play the cop. And I remember I was on set of The Majestic, which was a period piece that took place in the 50s, and I had, stiffy rolled hair and really red lipstick on, and I had to go over on my lunch hour and audition. I had to wipe off the red lipstick and get my hair in a ponytail and be tough Danny. It was fun, but that's how I got it. Yeah. Just a regular old audition. I think you can even see our auditions on one of the DVDs. It's like a special feature.
Yeah. They have some of those tapes. Was this the first time you ever played a cop role? And did they make you do any kind of training for it? Because what you were doing was if you ask me, it was way more involved, because you were always out in the streets, and you had rules and regulations that guys like Vic weren't following. Did they make you run through any kind of training program?
Well, no, that's so interesting that you should bring that up, because that was one of the struggles that I had when we first started out, because I was, Julian and I, or Michael Jason and I were uniform cops, and Vic and the strike team, were rogue cops. They could do whatever the fuck they wanted.
Right.
And I had to basically follow the letter of the law, and I was really invested in my character. I wanted to be a good cop. And they didn't require any training, but I did go down to the shooting range here in Los Angeles, because I'm terrified of guns.
Really?
Yeah, I look like I know what I'm doing, don't I?
Yeah. That's funny.
I know. I always ask, whenever cops would come up to me like, "Oh, Danny, you're such a great cop," I was like, "Do I look like I know what I'm doing?" And they'd say, "Yeah, you sure do. You're badass." And I said,
"Yeah,
because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm terrified of guns."
Okay, so you actually went down and did some shooting training.
I did, and that was incredibly helpful. Yeah, that was really helpful, because I shot a rifle when I was a kid. I grew up in Louisiana, and my daddy gave us all, we all had 22 rifles, and there's a big world of difference between a 22 rifle and a Glock 9.
Right. Where did the fear come from?
Shooting my toe off.
Oh, I did not know about that.
No, I mean, I didn't. No. I didn't do that in real life.
Oh, okay.
No, I was afraid of. As a matter of fact, when I first picked up my first pistol, my friend who took me down to the shooting range, I started crying. I was so terrified.
Really? Because
now, doesn't that make you think? Doesn't that make you think I'm an amazing actress because I was so badass, and you know the truth, I was actually really crying?
It does. So let me ask you this. When you were doing scenes, there's actually a particular scene where Rondell sends a guy to rob you in the first season.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm a cop killer and all this. Does that kind of stuff make you nervous, even though there shouldn't be any real danger involved in that?
Well, we had great stunt coordinators, so I never felt nervous about the real physical stuff like that. And honestly, I didn't feel nervous when it was a real gun, but it was blocked, so I wasn't nervous about anything going off when I was working. But when I picked up a real gun at the shooting range,
Got it.
I was terrified.
Got it.
Because I did a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie years ago, and the director said to me, it's so funny to see actors with the gun because they handle it with such bravado, but if I put a real bullet in a real gun, you wouldn't handle it that way.
Yeah.
And he was right, because when I picked up a real gun with a real bullet, I was terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But on set, no, we had great prop. Oh my God, property master,
Okay,
Danny
good.
Rowe, our property master, and yeah, they were
I
awesome.
was gonna say I was gonna start watching the show completely differently, knowing that you're scared to death in all those scenes. I was gonna feel bad for you.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
didn't know how to walk in that Sam Brown, but I wasn't scared.
in season one, Danny, she really kind of plays. I'm trying to find a way I want to say this to make sense. So you really get featured in season two because that's when she has all the issues with the Al Tahani widow and just a lot
Yeah.
of stuff going bad for her. But in one, she's kind of I would almost like an attachment to Julian's storyline, which is his sexuality. I wanted to ask, as an actress, do you find participating in story arcs like that are kind of focused on another character as rewarding as you do as the ones you did in season two, which were really focused on her? I actually got to watch the reunion you guys did recently, and you said that your favorite scene that you did was when you were confronting Julian about being gay.
Hmm.
So, do you find that you can get as much motivation, interest in doing storylines like that, or was it just that particular scene in that moment?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, look, if I were to be totally honest, no. I mean, it's never as fun as when the story is about you, and you've got way more stuff, complexity to think about and deal with, and think about your character's arc. And but as a woman, welcome to the story of my life. I mean, for
Yeah,
the most part, until very recently, women are always the supporting characters to the male story.
right.
Gay or straight, it doesn't matter. So, unfortunately, you get used to it. It's been a real issue,
Yeah,
that the women are just, reacting to what's going on to the men. That particular storyline, though, with Julian, I didn't feel secondary. I felt like, especially with that scene, I was his friend. I was concerned about
right.
him, and I felt as much a part of that scene. That scene was as much about how Danny was going to handle it as how Julian was handling it. And I think I also talked about working with Scott Brazil,
Uh huh.
our executive producer and the guy who directed that scene, who was a really lovely director. I used to say all the time, Scott scared the shit out of me as a producer, but I loved him as a director.
What was your opinion on Scott as a producer and director? I hear a lot about him, pretty much from everybody that I've interviewed so far. So I'm curious, what's your take on Scott Brazil?
Well, I mean, he was a very complicated man. Look, as we all are, if you're living a life of anything, we're complicated people. But
Right.
just that, I mean, as a producer, he had to make his day. He had to, you know, he had to be the yes man just to shut people, not the yes man, but he would have to tell people, oh yeah, sure, sure, no problem. And then you have to turn around and do exactly the opposite. Sometimes what the producer's job is, he's got to, put out a lot of fires, take care of a lot of needs, a lot of
Right.
egos. But as a director, he was incredibly generous, really thoughtful, just an absolute, I mean, I've worked with, I've done over 200 hours of television.
Yeah.
I've worked with as many directors. And he was one of the better ones. So there was an interesting, I wouldn't say duplicity, that sounds harsher than it was, but there was a duplistic aspect to it, I
Sure.
guess,
Sure.
between producer and director. So, and it was a great loss for us because he did create so much of what The Shield was, which was, I don't know if it ended up in the DVD thing, but we talked about, when Scott was around, you couldn't have people who were too pretty. There wasn't that television pretty look. We were all
Yeah.
sort of regular people. And the season that Scott died, Alex, what's his name? He's on Hawaii 5 now. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm about to forget your name.
Oh, Alex O'Loughlin.
Yeah, yeah, great guy, beautiful. And we were on set one day looking up at him, and I think I said to Paula, like, if Scott was still alive, that guy wouldn't be here today. He was so pretty.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think,
You just
when,
didn't.
hold on now, when did Paula come in? She came in what was that season? Oh, Lord.
I was pregnant.
Okay.
They brought in the hotsy topsy once I got fat. That's what happened. They were like, okay, Danny's fat. Let's get in a cute little hotsy
Well,
topsy.
now that we're kind of on that subject, did you ever feel like your character was going to be threatened because of that? Did you think they were going to feel more?
Well, I mean, I think I was the product of enough years gone by. I mean, look, it wasn't not long before I got pregnant that they fired that girl on Baywatch for getting pregnant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, she had to run around in a swimming suit, and I didn't. I got to
sure.
hide behind a, a
Well,
cop
they worked
uniform.
that into the story too, which is kind of cool.
Well, they kind of had to because, back in the day they would put a laundry basket in front of a woman's belly and,
Right.
try to hide it. But you couldn't really do that with Danny.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this. Well, you probably do. This is a pretty big deal. It's in Dragon Chasers. Danny gets bit by a criminal who is potentially infected with HIV, and they didn't ever, to my knowledge, and I watched season 1 about a few months ago. They basically put her on a drug regimen, and then you never hear about it again. Did they ever
I know.
discuss expanding that storyline? And if they did, would you?
No, and it drove me crazy.
So you did want to explore that because I was always hoping they would kind of bring it back and.
Oh, yeah. It drove me crazy. I was like, let's not forget she was bitten by an HIV positive. Like, it drove me nuts. As an actor, you're always like, wait, what about this storyline and
Yeah.
stuff? I mean, I think that what happened was things happen in the writer's room. Things happen with dynamics between, actors and things like that. And I think that the whole strike team dynamic, I mean, it was a very, very, very testosterone ridden. There were no
Yeah.
women writers on the show.
Right.
At the beginning. There were, later on, Sarah and Liz came in, and we had Kim came in, I think, second year, I'm not second or third. But, they got, look, I'm going to say the Shield way, they got a hard-on for their own storylines with the dudes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is that Shield enough for you?
Yeah, there
It's
you go.
true.
We're getting there.
They do. There were a bunch of dudes sitting around, and they got excited about, busting shit up.
Right.
And Danny just didn't fall, and, those were not my storylines.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame because I always was wondering what was going on with that. It really felt like something that they could have had a lot of, I don't want to say fun, but they could have explored, and I
Well,
would have
that
liked
could
to
be
have
the
seen.
title of this podcast, How Danny Was Underused.
Yeah, we'll put that. I'll put that in the note.
Put that in the notes.
I've got a loaded question
Chime
here.
in here. How was Danny underused? No. Yeah, no, I felt the same way. I felt like, don't drop it. But we had 8 main characters, and there were lots of storylines. And,
Right.
you just have to kind of figure out which ones are sticking and which ones, may or may not creep up
Right.
further down the line.
So this is a little bit of a loaded question, but it came to my mind after I've been rewatching this because this is going to be the 6th time that I've seen this show full through when I finish this podcast,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I've batted this kind of question around. Do you think that Julian and Danny were good partners? Do you think they worked well as partners? It's easy to answer that
Why?
question quickly.
No, I know. Why do you ask? I'm curious.
Because I go back and forth. You watch them and you think, like, you see those moments with, like, them in the bathroom and, he's struggling personally and she helps him out, letting him know that it's okay, that he's gay. And he gets suicidal at some points and she's really worried about him putting on a bulletproof vest and all this. But then there's a lot of conflict. You see him work with Tommy later on, and he seems to be like enjoying himself, and there's less strife. So I wondered if that actually was a product of them being partners. So in other words, the fact that they were partners is the reason why that turmoil was coming up in the first place. Tommy wasn't going to push him on those issues. She was. So does that make her a good partner or a bad partner in your mind? I've had a lot of time to think about this show.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I mean, that's a really interesting thing. Look, all I can say is it's all fiction, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's in the writer's
Yes.
head, not mine. But I would say that
And
Well-
before you answer that, I don't want you to feel like I'm
Yeah.
putting you on the spot and you're going to be like the judge, jury, and executioner. Because Jay, I felt like I was doing that with him, and I don't want you to think that. I'm just curious what your personal opinion is. That's all.
yeah, no, I know. Everybody asking about why he killed the cat.
Right? Yeah.
It's like because it was on the page.
Right. Right.
It's a very interesting question, and again, we played what was on the page. But I can tell you this: I've had very, very few experiences, and I've done a shitload of television.
Mm-hmm.
I've had very, very few experiences like I had on The Shield that it felt authentic. And there
Yeah.
was a relationship that was happening, whether it was on set or off set, but there was relationships that were happening among all of us that we were invested in each other as people and as co-workers. We all cared, and I'm sure you have probably gotten this vibe from the however many people you've interviewed. You know, we all cared very deeply about each other. It was kind of, you know, I go to work sometimes and it's like you're just another day at the office. But we felt like, I mean, I've never been a cop. I'm afraid of guns. I was in a uniform. I hated I mean, I would rather be in a miniskirt and heels. But I felt like I was that person.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I was talking to Michael J. / Julian, Michael wasn't gay.
Right.
He, as far as I knew, I mean, he'd been married, had kids. I assume he wasn't gay, or Leighton for that matter.
Right.
But I felt like I was really talking to him about something about his life. So if that's good or bad, I don't know about the answer about good or bad. I certainly felt connected to the material in a way that I have not really had the pleasure and the honor of a lot in my life.
Sure.
And so to answer your question, I think that's a good partner.
Okay. That's a great answer. I like that. I've got a couple more questions that are like that, and I can just lump them together because they're the same material. In Blowback, supposedly it's the beginning of a relationship that Danny starts with Vic, and she kind of she kind of pushes Dutch to the side. He drops his great line in Blowback that "you got to be shitting me," which is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. But seemingly to me is a genuine character, you know, being Dutch, and Vic is a scumbag. And I wouldn't even say that he's a scumbag because of what we get to see. I would just say in general is a scumbag. In the pilot, he walks up to Danny and he basically offers to go out with her. And your line is, "Oh, is your wife coming?" And he's like, you know, "Damn, she can't make it." And then you say, "Damn, I can't either." Well, then she starts this relationship with him. So I've had female fans, and this is a question for them, really. Why did Danny, do you think, choose somebody like Vic over Dutch?
Well, remember I also said, I just forgot myself. He says, what's the line? I mean, you've seen it more times than I have, but he says, well, you know, that was
he said, "When
yeah,
did you get morals?" And she said, "I always had them. I just lose track sometimes."
Yeah, so the implication is that they, you know, slept together. They had a little fling of some sort. Is that not what you got? What you got? I mean, that was what we.
I never did, but everybody else on the planet that I've talked to said that that's the case. So you ended that argument with that.
Yeah, that was always the assumption.
Okay.
That he had some sort of fling. It was, you know, probably stupid and short-lived, you know, knowing he's married, and whether there was alcohol involved or not, who knows. But yeah, there was definitely something that happened.
Okay.
That was always my working. It wasn't like I chose Vic over Dutch, or that.
Gotcha.
I think I had slept with Vic maybe a couple times, once, twice, whatever. It was just a stupid, you know, we've all done that.
See, now that opens my mind, and that's the best part about doing this show, is it opens my mind to so many different aspects that I still haven't picked up on after watching it X amount of times. So you're saying that it wasn't necessarily a choice. She was supposedly already.
Yeah, I think the ice had been broken, if you know what I mean.
Got it.
And sometimes, I mean, look, you've heard the term "fuck buddy."
Sure.
I mean, you know, I think probably it was probably easier to just do that with Vic
than Dutch, because he would complicate it.
That was a relationship.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't a relationship. And that was a storyline that they took on, that neither one of them were interested. You know, even when you did see them together a couple times, you know, it was clear that Danny wasn't chasing a relationship, and Vic certainly wasn't.
It's funny, like, you would think that would be a simple answer, but for some reason it's perplexed me. And that question actually came from Libby, who did a co-host with us, and she loves Jay Carnes to death. So it's always gotten
we all do.
Yeah, it's always gotten out of why Danny would go for Vic. So moving into actually season 2, they start a storyline which was months after the whole 9/11
yeah.
disaster. And
Yeah.
they bring in this storyline where Danny shoots a Arab American, and I'm curious, like, what was your thoughts on that storyline when you first read it?
Hmm.
Because that's not, I mean, that's something that like was really, really raw, and it's hard explaining that to people who are younger now who don't really get it.
Hmm.
What were your feelings in getting involved in that kind of story?
I had a very difficult time with it. I just did not see. First, my first response is, Danny wouldn't do this. And I got in a bit of a contretemps with Kurt Sutter, who I believe wrote that initial episode. I believe he wrote.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it was Dead Soldiers where they burned Armadillo.
Oh, okay. And when did I shoot the Muslim guy in one or two?
That's going to be in Dead Soldiers.
Yeah, and John Badham directed that, and Kurt Sutter wrote it.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. See, I remember it vividly,
So you had
and
an
that's a
argument with
long
Kurt
time
over
ago.
that?
Oh yeah. Everybody had an argument with Kurt about something.
That's awesome.
People were all, are you going to interview Kurt? He'll tell you about
I'm
everybody.
going to try. But
Yeah, Kurt's.
what actually dug at you when you were doing that? Like, what was it? You just didn't want it. It was too. Was it the?
So just the storyline itself was, upsetting to me because
Sure.
I don't want to shoot anybody. So I think that I approached it from that standpoint first, which is probably not a good idea just from a craft level. But my first initial knee-jerk reaction was, no, Danny wouldn't do this. And Kurt Sutter said, but she does. And I said, no, but she.
Sorry,
But
that's,
I
that's
wouldn't,
funny.
and then it switched from she to I, right? I was like, but I wouldn't do, I'm Danny. I wouldn't do this.
Right.
And he said, but you do. Like, literally, that's all he said. But you do. I was like, no, you don't understand. Danny would not do this. And he said, yes, she does, because she does.
Oh, Lord.
Fuck you. In other words, those were my marching orders.
Right,
Like, that's
right.
what's in the script. That's what you're going to play. And, and Kurt said a lot of shit to me over the 7 years, but, he was like, just say the fucking line. I don't need this shit. I get this shit at home. He said to me.
That's awesome.
You can quote me on that one. I wasn't so awesome when he said it to me.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Well, I was just curious, like, do you prefer playing story arcs like that are, I guess you kind of already
Oh,
answered
yeah,
the question.
I love being scared. More power to him. He was right. I prefer to be scared and be challenged and have things that make me think, I'm not playing Catherine.
Right.
We started this interview, like, I'm terrified of guns. The last place you would find me is in, a yard at nighttime with a gun. I'm an actor. I'm a crafts person. I have to approach it from the character's, viewpoint and the storyline and the mythology and all of that kind of stuff. And my first reaction was not from that place. My first reaction was from a personal place, which is not what I'm hired to do.
Yeah.
So Kurt was right when I said, but she wouldn't do that. And he says, but she does. And she did. Danny shot the guy.
Right.
And that was a good lesson to learn at work. And it was a great storyline to grapple with on many different levels. But all of the things that Danny was struggling with, wrongfully accused or not, I was struggling with. And
Yeah.
that helps you give texture to the character. And, you sort of bring that, hopefully, if you're, able to and you've got the room, you bring those self-same struggles. And there's a richness there that you can play with. I loved it.
She gets fired at the end of season 2. And now, when I first watched it, I thought they were just going to write you off the show, and I was pissed. Did they give you an indication that was going to be the case, or had you been signed for the next season and it was just a story arc thing?
No, I was signed for 7 years, and it was a story arc, but it's never fun to see those episodes. I mean, I was like, did I do something wrong? I'm pretty much a team player.
Right.
Jay used to joke with me that there was a Kill Danny episode in Sean Ryan's top right-hand drawer. It probably was. I mean,
so I've kind of already.
I'm sure Sutter thought I was a pain in the ass, but I thought I was okay to work with. But
Yeah.
Kurt, you can ask him about that if you interview him. Was Catherine Dent really that challenging to work with?
I'll slip it in there. Cut it out.
Put it in there. Send me an email if you respond.
Oh, I will. I brought this up to somebody else, but this will probably be the first time they're hearing it. As a matter of fact, I know it will. I have like this evil plot where I'm trying to convince Sean that the series would be worth revisiting. Mm-hmm. So if you want to visit Fantasyland with me for a few seconds, Where do you
Hmm.
think Danny is 10 years after this show is over? And would you be interested in playing her again if everything, the stars aligned, the story was right, you had the right people involved? Would you like to do that?
Well, to answer your second question first, absolutely, in a heartbeat. Sign me up.
See,
Where
that's
would you
another
like
one
me
in the
to show
yes
up?
box. I feel like that's just another
Oh,
win.
yeah. Have you gotten any no's? I don't think so. Have you?
I've only asked Nikki that, and she said she'd be all about it. So that's two,
Yeah. But Danny, Danny's not going to be a foot soldier at my age.
right?
You do sort of age out on the street. So I think that she would be. I think she'd have David Acevedo's position.
Hey, how about that? Okay. See,
Why not?
I have like I don't want to go too crazy with it, but you also have to remember she's got Lee with Vic, and now
Right.
she would know that he's a cop killer. That would be a fascinating little rabbit hole to
That
dive down, wouldn't it?
that would be. Where do you think Danny would be 10 years from now?
So, with the way I thought about it, she would be doing one of two things. She would be trying to distance herself as much as possible from police work because all it does is remind her of who her child's father is. Or, if she stayed with police work, definitely went up the ladder. Been some sort of,
Well, let me challenge you on your thinking about that.
okay, sure.
You posed a question to me about, do I enjoy being the supporting character to other people's storylines, or do I enjoy my own storyline? And I answered, I like my own storyline. Why, if Danny's a good cop and she loves what she does, why would what the guy does have anything to do with her choice in life?
I'm going to counter your counter with a counter.
Okay?
I think that
Counter away.
so what you said to me about the storyline with Jace and Julian, where you didn't feel like you were an attachment, but you were equally involved. By being as active as a parent as she would be, I could definitely see you taking a similar role. It wouldn't be you playing off Michael, but that would be you guys taking on a storyline head on. Now, what Danny does professionally is almost subsidiary to the parent child father relationship, how they would handle that. That would be what I would be really fascinated to see in terms of what she does
But it's
professionally.
not. It's not, and this is where I think that, forgive me, but I think that where guys have it wrong. I'm a very in my personal life, I'm an incredibly dedicated, devoted mother. My son Oliver, who you saw me pregnant with in
Uh
the
huh.
show,
Yeah.
is now 13, and I mean I'm like the softiest, mushiest, mom, and want to bake him cookies and pick him up from
Yeah.
school, and
Right.
soccer mom. I mean I couldn't be more mom. I also love my work. I'm dedicated. I'm a hustler. It's an addition to. It's another part
Gotcha.
of, arm of, etc. Oh, it can be part of the daily conflict,
Yeah.
but she can still go to work.
I like that. It's
And I think that that's an issue with a lot of writing in Hollywood is that we automatically assume, oh, well, she's a mom, so she's going to be,
if you look at Danny, you're seeing her as like a captain, and she's got like
well, yeah. I mean, her kid's 10 now, right, or 11,
yeah, well,
whatever.
yeah, because yeah, he would be 10. If you think about it, though, there's that much richness with the characters still.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's just the writing was just off the charts with the complexity and the subtlety and the authenticity. I mean, yeah, those are real people there that they create. I mean, obviously they're not real, but I mean, they really fleshed them out in a way that was just supremely gratifying to play.
Well, I got absolutely what I wanted. I got your go ahead to put you on the yes list. So thank you so much for
Yes,
that.
and you know what? As of today, I'm available.
Hey, yeah, that's pretty much all I got for today. I thank you so much for coming on.
Well, it was a pleasure to talk with you, Andrew. Thank you so much for being such a
Absolutely.
great fan, and yeah, this is fun.
Is there anything that you wanted to mention where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Catherine Dent, but you can't really find me because I'm never there.
Right.
You know what I am going to do? I will say this. I have one poster left of The Shield. It's the final season, and it's the poster of Vic tossing away his badge,
Yeah.
and it says the final act.
Hmm.
And I am going to do some kind of fun thing. I did it with the posters, some posters I had before, think she lived in Chicago. I can't remember, and it was fine. But anyway, I don't care if they live in Australia. I'll still mail it. But I'm going to do something fun on Twitter to auction off or, do something fun with the last poster I have. It's a beautiful one. It's season 7, sorry.
We will look for it. I'll certainly look for it.
Flipping his babe. Yeah, so if anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, it's at Catherine Dent, and I'll be back on it eventually once my soul comes back into play and hasn't been sucked away from the social media.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Carl, thank you so much, Andrew. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you're doing this, and a lot of fun to chat with you.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.